Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of PR Roundtable. It's already number 11. Since last time it was my colleague Kate hosting, I'm very excited to be back and speaking with all of you wonderful people today. But just to check that your audio is working, I'd love you to tell me in the chat, prezi.com/live, prezi.com/live if you want to join with the chat. I want you to tell me in the chat what did you have for breakfast or lunch today, just so we know that everyone can hear me well and that we're chatting live. So answers in the chat below. Today, we're very lucky to be speaking with two extraordinary PRs who went from being leaders at huge global companies to running their own business. I know a thing or two of that. Bram Smets worked as a business unit director at the global PR firm of Ketchum and is also former spokesperson for Eurostar. You know, the train running between London and Brussels, Paris, underneath the channel. So he's well versed in international comms, strategy, and getting up close and personal with the media. He started his own agency, Bram Smith, back in 2019. Meanwhile, Sara Griffin is an expert in crafting holistic comms strategies for culture, organizations, and the arts, as well as for businesses. Before going independent earlier this year, Sara was a senior advisor, associate director at global PR firm Cameron PR, whom she still advises to this day alongside her consultancy work. So, Bram and Sara, thank you both for joining us. Here they are. Let's put them on.
Hello, guys. Hello, everyone.
Let's see.
Hi.
Let's see. Here we are. How are you? All good?
All good.
All right. So before we start, Bram, I've got one question about you. I have to ask you about the name of your agency, Bram Smith. Where did that come from?
Yeah, it was around 10 years ago when I was spokesperson at high-speed rail operator Eurostar, and I was on call. It was on a Friday night just before Christmas, and I was sitting in a bar, literally. It was on a Friday night. Yeah, my first beer. Let's jump into the weekend. And then my boss gave me a call. She said, "Look, Bram, we have an issue. We have 4 trains stuck inside the tunnel under the sea. So I think you better go home because, shit is hitting the fan." And it actually did. And I was on call on international level. So I got all the calls from BBC and all the reporters. In the BBC journalists, it's 24/7. So they kept me up all night. But I was on the screen like Eurostar spokesperson, but they didn't get my name right. Bram Smets. It's pretty complicated in a chaotic night. So they just called me Brum Smith, and they gave me some other names as well. But it was the thing that I remembered was Brum Smith. Brum Smith, Eurostar spokesperson. So that's where the name comes from. And it was also one of the most interesting or fascinating periods of my career, because when you're stuck in your apartment, living on coffee and keeping awake the entire night, and then in the morning you still have to do all the other interviews for the Belgian broadcast and Belgian journalists. So without sleep, going to the station, doing the interviews. It was pretty hectic, but very interesting. And I've learned so much, and also, not a bad name, I think.
No, exactly. And this all brings back to, and that's why it was so important for you that you decided your agency for it, or it's kind of with a wink as well, I guess, to that period of your life.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And Sara, you went independent just like earlier this year, I guess. So in the middle of the pandemic. So what kind of spurred that decision? And weren't you kind of like afraid of what would happen, because like it was like a global crisis going on?
I was definitely afraid, but I was also very, very lucky to have a great support system and network. when you're working in this industry, I'm sure this is familiar to everybody. You have so many journalists that are friends and colleagues in a very similar way to your colleagues at your job. So they were extremely supportive. I had a lot of past clients that were really supportive, and was very lucky that the agency that I was with was very, very supportive of me. I'd always been very bad at staying in scope and, kind of abiding by agency rules in terms of what we're able to do as a PR agency. And so while I had my own team and kind of my own
Mm-hmm.
fiefdom, so to speak, within an
Mm.
agency, I was always going a bit rogue. And what I realized was that, like, I didn't necessarily want to do what a traditional PR agency was doing. And even though Cameron was extremely supportive, I was always
Mm-hmm.
going to be kind of like pushing against the boundaries that an
Mm-hmm.
agency created. And I kind of needed to do my own thing to be able to embrace that more like multi-hyphenate experience of what communication strategy is, because, I think the industry at large has evolved so much over the past few years, where hiring a PR agency used to be that you gave someone a press release and they sent it out to their contacts and then threw a party and were like gatekeepers at a door, which I was never good at. A Sarah
Mm.
Griffin door was traditionally a door where everyone got in, whether they were on the list or not. But over the past few years, it's evolved to be so much more strategic, so much more integrated into the larger business goals, so much more integrated into where you're going and who you are, and a real partnership. And I was feeling confined by the agency structure, and was lucky enough that when I started to talk to folks about it, including the CEO at the agency
Mm-hmm.
that I was at, they were extremely supportive of me
Mm.
doing
Mm.
my own thing, and able to kind of help me through that early period, which was terrifying despite that, but definitely the right move.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. It's kind of similar because I like when we started Presley was also in the crisis of 2008, right? A different crisis. But I know that I was working at an advertising agency, but they became Presley's first customer as well. Kind of
Yeah.
weird in a way, but having kind of a supportive like employer that does make these things easier. And also as being a manager of Presley, for some people you just know, right, that you can get them for a few amount of years and you get the most out of it, but then they need to graduate. And I've always found it more rewarding to lose people starting their own business. And I've been
Yeah.
like, yes, let's do that. And where can I help, right? Then they go to like someone else. Like I think that kind of feels to me with some people, that you just have them for that amount of time and so on. So, and Bram,
Well,
you started just before the crisis. Like how did that kind of went for you, and how did you kind of see the pandemic, and how did you survive it?
Yeah, it was. I think I started off pretty well at the end like in November, so a few months before the month of March when the pandemic really started, and I think I started off pretty well, and then all of a sudden, bang! And the business, my business was highly impacted for a few months, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, yeah, a little bit panicky, to be honest. But then slowly business started increasing again, and then all of a sudden there was really like, yeah, it started going really well all of a sudden. And I also think that a lot of marketing budgets were shifted towards PR, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And also thanks to my network, I cannot stress it or underline it enough how important a network is. I think I've always been pretty good at networking, but I've always done it in an authentic, because actually I also hate I have a double feeling with the word networking, because
Yeah.
actually I hate networking just for the sake of networking, but I'm generally interested in people, and that's why I think that I've always done it in a pretty natural way, and I must say that I have a pretty broad network, but it has helped me, so much. A network with journalists, but also with other agencies, with former clients and stuff. So I think that really gave me a boost, and I think that like freelancers, maybe thanks to the pandemic, we collaborated even more, like small freelancers, and I think we can put together like the best team ever, even better than the bigger agencies, I think, and just do awesome work for our clients and serve them really well without having the overhead that you have at those big agencies. So I think our model is like really future proof, and what I say with our model is like smaller agencies working together, and because I'm not specialized, I think I'm still specialized in crisis comms, corporate comms, and media relations. That's what I'm really good at, I think. But for all the other stuff like integrated and social media, we work together with other people and specialists, and I think that can be really powerful.
Yeah. And Sara, you mentioned that as well, that like you had a great network and that kind of helped you to get that. But if maybe people are considering, or they already have their agency and they want to expand on it, like how do you start kind of building your network? Were there specific things that you started doing more, or was it just something that grew organically and you just happened to be lucky there? Or what can people do to influence that?
So I totally agree with Bram that it's not really about traditional networking in that sense. I've never gone out trying to network. It's about building authentic relationships. And I think that that's the key and why I felt like I was ready to do it at the time that I did, because I realized that I had a strong network in the like cultural communications world, but it was because I had real friendships with people that I'd known for over a decade, because the people who I've been working with, folks that work at, these institutions or architectural offices, people who I did projects with way back, journalists, I've kept in touch with and become friends with as we're working on projects together, like treated them well, learned about who they are, became actual friends. And it's something that I've been struggling with actually a little bit as I started out on my own, where it's like, it's hard to figure out the separation between my personal life and professional life, because they're sort of the same thing in many ways. I had this Saturday, I was like, I'm not going to do anything related to work. And then I looked back on it and I was like, well, but I went to my old boss's house and hung out with her wife and kids. And then I went to a friend's birthday dinner, who's also a cultural PR. There's another friend who is like a cultural PR there. And so it's not a networking process anymore. And I think that's why it's really effective, and why there are people that I can really lean on is like, it's not like I send a text message to people like hitting them up for favors every so often, so they like come to expect that from me. It's like when they see my name pop up, it's like 90% of the time I'm sending them like a meme or checking in with them about something that's going on in their life. And then 10% of the time I'm like, hey, did you see that email I sent you? I really need you to look at it. And I think that that's the difference. It's their authentic relationships, and that's the way to build a network that you feel like you can truly rely on, because those people can also rely on you, right?
Yeah. And if I'm correct, Bram, these relationships, they go where you go, right? So it's not that because you kind of switch jobs that all of a sudden they're gone. Is that correct? Or can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually, I had a party last Saturday, and it was actually with two of my clients. So some of my best friends are my clients, but also former colleagues, because they don't stay in agencies, they move, and they become clients, and then all of a sudden there was this guy. He was joking like, now, once and for all, Bram, the relationship between us is clear. Now I'm your boss, and It has actually always been like this, but I'm calling the shots now. So I mean, it's true. It's about authentic relationships, and networking events actually aren't that interesting.
No.
Just because I also work. I'm working because I'm getting compliments about my ethic here. So I'm actually at home, but we also very often work at co-working spaces and just generally meeting people and just like the golden question is, hey, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then they start talking, and then all of a sudden you see possibilities to work together and collaborate. So
makes a lot of sense. But when do you know, Sarah? When did you know, like, okay, it's time? Because of course you've been for a while at Cameron, so you probably had like a really great time there as well. But when do you feel, all right, I've really hit my limits, I really want to kind of like break free? Because like, if you would be on the safe side, you would say like, let's see what the pandemic does, and then kind of. But it was clearly like you didn't want to wait. How do you feel it? Okay, I'm ready now to do this on my own.
Well, I don't know that I felt ready. A couple of people told me that I was ready when I was talking to them about what I was thinking about. And to be totally honest, I cried for like 48 hours and was like, can I do this? Will I be okay?
Yeah.
And then just decided to take a leap of faith. But for me, I think a big part of what made it feel like something that made sense for that exact time was that there were a few people who I'd worked with before, a few organizations that I'd worked with before that, also were pretty hard hit during the pandemic, definitely couldn't afford to work with a bigger agency like Cameron. But I could see how I could piece together a kind of a situation for myself where I'd still be able to support myself and be financially stable and work with clients for a much lower retainer than what an agency would charge them. And what those folks really needed was less of like the full engine of a big international firm that can really get things out in that like broad way, but they needed a strategic partner that also would do media relations for them. And so it felt like a really interesting opportunity to work with a few great organizations that I already had relationships with and that I really cared about. And there was like no way I'd be able to work with all of them at the agency because, I mean, as supportive and wonderful as Cameron was and still has been, it's like I'd be able to squeeze in working with someone for like, almost as like a pro bono sort of thing here and there. But like that's an agency model can't work on that. But as an individual, you have so much more flexibility. And it was those opportunities kind of all presenting at the same time that made it feel both like something that was really viable and would be really interesting and that would open up a lot of new pathways.
Yeah, makes sense. And back to you, Bram. You talked a little bit about like the business model or how you operate. Were there things that you didn't want to like copy over or wanted to kind of like do differently than like the agencies that you've been working on? Because from my perspective, and I'm not an agency person, it's kind of project-based retainer, but that's basically kind of like the tools that you have at hand. Is there something that you wanted to evolve there while starting on your own?
Well, something that I think that I much more go the extra mile. I maybe is it because I'm an independent now and I'm running my own business? But I think like flexibility is. I have clients, they can call me like we never close. I mean, and I think we are also more flexible, but also more result oriented. And really go the extra mile. I think that is a difference. And I also want to have like personal relationships with my clients. I think it's always important, also in a big agency.
Sure.
But I just want to be like have an authentic relationship, a long-term relationship with my clients. and just go the extra mile and do everything that we can to get them results. I think we are I am more result oriented now than I was at in my previous career, I think, because I know how important it is, and strategy is important, but also delivering results. I think that is really important, and that's what they that's what we're evaluated on.
Okay.
So that's definitely I think a difference.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, and Sarah, do you see that there are, of course, like different types of clients, right? And probably you won't be able to service all clients or want to service all clients. How did you decide that, all right, this is a big agency client and definitely not something that I want to do, and this is really what I love doing? Was it coming from your own passion? Was it coming from a business opportunity? Was it coming from all these things? Like, how did you decide on your niche?
In some ways, I think I'm still deciding. There are definitely, some organizations that I'll talk to that feel a little bit more like they need an agency. It's like if they're at a certain point in their business development where it's like they kind of need a full communications department, like part-time a little bit. That's really when you need an agency, because they need people at every different level to work for them. For me, it's really been that I have been choosing to work with people that I can be a partner to in one way or another. And those were the clients that I really liked best at the agency. This isn't a value judgment, right? But there are some organizations, businesses that come to a PR agency, and what they really need is kind of like a hired gun. They need people that they know are like super professional. They know what they're trying to do and what story they're trying to tell. They need someone to like refine it and really get it out there in exactly the right way. And those kinds of clients to me are more big agency clients, because it is a very well-oiled machine, that is really ready to do that. And for me, I'm kind of looking for people that are at a similar place to where I'm at, where they're experienced, but in a lot of ways emerging, that they're looking to become something, and that we'll become that together. And so it's a different kind of partnership. And like, I love taking on projects here and there where it's like, I also love crisis communication. So every once in a while, I'll take on a crisis project that's like, obviously not a partnership in the same way, though it's very emotional. It's just like, you're trying to like get something done, and it's task oriented and results oriented. But for the most part, where I'm really trying to build is in those like longer term relationships, or even like shorter term relationships that are really trying to like level up in a sense and get an organization to where it's trying to go.
Yeah. Bram, I'd love to have your take on this as well, because what's kind of the difference in like value proposition? Because there will be probably use cases where you say, listen, go to Ketchum, go to like AK strategies, go to like when a customer comes to me, right? Which are those situations, and which are situations where you say like, well, here we can add something unique?
Yeah,
or there are no situations where you say that.
No, I think for some like big corporations, and maybe if you're like really like international corporations and brands, they can like maybe better work with a big agency, because an agency is global very often. But I think we can still do a lot. I think if we because we are working in this ecosystem. I work with so many other agencies, smaller agencies in Belgium, but also sometimes with the big ad agencies like TBWA. It's the biggest one in Belgium. In Belgium, it's the biggest one. I have fantastic collaboration with those guys as well. So I'm not anti big agency, not at all, because I would. But I think we have we can do a lot, and I think we can also serve big corporations. But it's a different kind of model that we would offer. It's maybe not so evident to do that, but what I like that Sara was talking about partnerships and being a partner of your client, and I think that is much more the case now, that we are a strategic partner and a partner instead of an agency. I don't have like an agency client relationship. It's more like a partnership. That's also what I like to have. But yeah, I still think that we are very future proof, and the ecosystem, that if you have an ecosystem, you can be very future proof as a freelancer. Why shouldn't we be able to take on huge assignments? I think we should be able to. It's just finding the right people at the right time, and yeah. Maybe I'm a bit naive, but I don't think I am, actually.
But like, for once, it's easier to be a global company than ever before, right? Because of the interconnectedness and how you can. It's much easier to work together with someone is from the States or from like Asia, right? So these things, of course, like through the internet, evolved like tremendously, which probably benefited the smaller teams, not just in PR agencies, in all different types of businesses a little bit more. So that's interesting. Yeah. We also, like, before we kind of went in, we asked some questions from PR influencers who kind of started their own business. And we've got one question here that I'm just going to play for you. And you probably know her because she started her business, I think, almost 10 years ago. But let's listen to her question. Give it a second.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Dietrich. I own an agency called Garment Dietrich, and I run a professional development site for communicators called Smets, which is also a blog. When I started my business, there were lots of things I didn't expect. But I think the biggest one was I didn't know what P&L stood for. I didn't know what a balance sheet was or how you balanced it, how it should be balanced, if it should be balanced. And I didn't have any idea how to invoice clients for the work that I was doing. I did it in spreadsheets. So my question for you is, how do you handle your accounting, your books, and your invoicing? It's not fun, but it's necessary.
So yeah, not fun, but necessary. How did you guys kind of like figure that one out? And thanks, of course, to Jeannie for asking that question. Maybe Sara, it's still pretty fresh for you. Was it kind of a big what?
It's very fresh for me. It's very daunting and overwhelming. I think that's one of the most intense thing about starting your own business. And obviously it's very different country to country, but you realize you have to become conversant in so many different things. It's like you have to set up a legal corporation. You need certain things in order to be able to open a business bank account. You have to start tracking your spending in a different way. And once you know how to do it, it's relatively simple. It's not fun, but it's pretty straightforward. But it's very overwhelming as like an initial process. Personally, I use QuickBooks Online, which is a lifesaver for me. It just like links into my business account, so I can kind of check everything that's coming in. That'll help with taxes at the end of the year. It does my balance sheet so that I can see how much money's going out versus how much is going in, and send invoices through that. So it's been relatively straightforward there, but even so, it's like I had a conversation with my accountant the other day that they were like, why did you call this meeting? And I was like, I have no idea if I'm doing this right. I need you guys to look at it and tell me what mistakes I'm making. But I was also very lucky that my mom was the secretary for an accountant in my like neighborhood in Queens when I was growing up. And I babysat for his kids, and his son is now working there. So this kid that I babysat for is my accountant. So it's all in the family. It's been a really nice hand-holding process that has been really necessary to make something extremely daunting feel a little bit easier.
Yeah. Because you do see and you hear stories about pretty successful people still failing in the business because they don't get these things under control, right? So I don't know, Bram, did you manage? Were you already like, of course, the basics are really simple, but how did you kind of like solve that thing?
Yeah, I think I learned so much at Ketchum. I used to work there for like 8 years, and I had a great mentor there, the general manager of the Brussels office, who taught me a lot on being commercial and that kind of stuff. So I was also part of the management team there. I did a lot of business development. So I think those yeah, I learned so much there, to be honest. And also on the level of like invoicing and that kind of stuff, I think I really knew how to do it. I have a very good accountant. I think I could not live without my accountant. That's like super important. And yeah, just having some good tools like Clockify to do your timesheets, and Zoho. I use Zoho for my invoicing. But I think that's something that you learn at a big agency is like billability versus business development versus your own marketing. I've been like instructed, or like it has been taught me in a very good way, and I know how important it is to be billable. Of course, it's very obvious, but maybe some people forget. But that you should also be like filling your pipeline, doing business development, and also not forgetting your own marketing, your social channels. Sara mentioned that she actually doesn't really like social media, but if I have the impression that if I post something on LinkedIn, like I post something on LinkedIn twice, and I have a lead, it's just fantastic how LinkedIn works. So no, I think the financials and stuff, just get yourself a great accountant. I mean,
yes, and some good tools, right? I
some good
definitely
tools.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think again, like when whatever you needed to do like manually, like 12 years ago, like receipt scanning, that's kind of like automatic now, right? That's such a big thing, right? But like
Is
on
it?
the pro, yeah.
We'll see when I get audited how well I
yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So, but like on the promotion, like maybe Sara, it's good that you kind of pick up where Bram left off. Like being like conscious about, because of course you have your customers. It's pretty easy to forget, like, oh, this project is ending. What else should I do? How do you balance that out to spend enough time in the sales or business development region versus like servicing clients? If you're just a small team, I guess it's challenging, right?
It's very challenging, and I think I'm still learning what that balance is. But what's nice is that these conversations kind of come about organically. And if you're a small team or a sole proprietor, it's you only have so much time, right? So you are having conversations. And I think for me, at least, what's been nice is as some projects wind down, other conversations sort of start up. You meet people through your work in one thing, or they come to you because you posted something, and the conversations sort of start naturally. I've never been one to really turn down a conversation, because you never know what often people tell you they're trying to do one thing and you're like, that's not interesting at all. And then you talk to them and realize that it's a really cool project. So I try to take as many of those initial conversations as I can. And I have started to come around to digital promotion and, posting on Instagram, which I recognize is, legitimate, and it's been really positive, and people have been talking to me about things that I posted. I was talking to a friend, I work with Design Week Lagos in Nigeria, and I was talking to one of my friends in Nigeria, and she was like, yeah, I was at a dinner party the other night, and somebody showed me on their phone a picture of like your business card that they took from like somebody's like social media. They were like, do you know this person? So it's like, I know that stuff all is, you know, it's a broader halo effect that's very positive, though personally it makes me feel so embarrassed, but I just have to move past it.
Yeah, you're way too humble, Sarah. Let's see how humble Bram is. So I'm kidding. Like, well, how much time, Bram? How do you kind of look at your week, right? Because you're of course spending like a little bit of time on the new business side and on client. Like, how do you decide what's when important, and do you make a week schedule? Like, how do you look at that?
I don't make a week schedule. No, we have our first employer, Ziggy, actually, who did an internship last year and he joined Brim Smith in August. So I always have a discussion with him at the beginning of the week, and it's always like, okay, focus on clients first, always. And I have to be honest. Yeah, Ziggy Stardust, indeed. That's the name comes from Ziggy Stardust from David Bowie. Yeah, he's a great guy, Ziggy. I don't know whether he's on the call or not, but I think it's no matter what, it's always focused on billability and serving the clients. But we work with a content calendar for our own social media channels. LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. We will be launching a monthly or a newsletter at least that we will start sending out as well. So it's definitely focus on our own marketing. It's very important. And I try to have like one that's somebody taught me, like, Bram, you should do like one commercial thing or business development thing, one every day. And I try to do one or two every day, to reach out to someone on LinkedIn, send a message, send an email, and I think it's a good rhythm and it keeps the conversation going. So that really works.
That's much better than I am. I tried to set that goal for myself, and I was like, no, one a week.
One a week.
Yeah, but even then, if it's something feasible, like I think, and you can keep up with it, and it's not really interfering with your clients, with the work that you're doing for your clients, I think that's kind of like the interesting. And I like just setting yourself a goal, like something that I've been bad at trying to do, but at least I want to try and write something once a month, right? And that's already challenging because, like, yeah, you need to figure out time. But then you see, like, there's so much benefits to it because you clear your own mind. Even if you don't even hit publish, it's already benefits in it. So I think what I try to do is to kind of like try and see if I do this specific thing, it kind of benefits lots of different things, not just the new business side, but maybe also my own brain, like ordering kind of things, or maybe it's more internally for the team that this is relevant as well. So I think that's been my strategy. Which are the things that you can do that basically impact a lot of different areas. But yeah, we're gonna go to questions in like a few minutes. So if people have some questions for Sarah or Bram, please put them in the chat, and Kate will flag them to us. One interesting question that I wanted to kind of like see, if you now start reaching out, whether it's to journalists, whether it's to prospects, or whether it's to clients, do people kind of treat you a little bit different because you're not part of a big agency now, or is it kind of the same? Maybe Sarah first, and then we can go to Bram.
I think it's definitely different, and it's similar to that networking question. I find that when I approach people now, it's a little bit less with something specific in mind, because I don't think of my time in the same way, right? Like, my professional network is something that is potentially so much broader. And so when I reach out to people, I'm not necessarily looking for one specific thing from them. I'm looking to connect to them because of some kind of shared interest. So it feels a lot more personal and a lot more individual. Like a lot of these, meetings or outreach, it's about finding ways to collaborate, finding ways to partner, finding ways to work together, to information share, to build with one another. So it's a different energy. And I think that, that's in a lot of ways the real positive about being a sole proprietor, that in some ways is unfair to bigger agencies, because a lot of the people working at a bigger agency, like I was working at a bigger agency just a few months ago, and I was exactly the same person, right? But I think that when you're coming as an institution, people kind of get the hair on their back raised a little bit and they feel like you're coming at them with a specific goal in mind, even if as an individual you're not. They are worried about the cost immediately in a way that I think makes them kind of shut down. And as an individual that's like coming with a much more open agenda, I think you're able to really greet people from a very different space, which has been super eye-opening for me.
Bram?
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit double for me though. I think they're not like you're all suited up at the big agency and they say, oh, this is gonna cost me a fortune. It's on that level. It's different because I think we can deliver like great quality for a relatively okay budget. I don't that definitely in that respect, I think we're doing very well. On the other hand, sometimes I do have to for like bigger corporations. I have the impression that I have to prove myself much more than when I was at Ketchum, for instance, because I think, yeah, but you're small, and so that's for me one of the biggest challenges actually at the moment. And then I say, yeah, but I've been working for those clients and those brands, but I used to work for them when I was back at Ketchum or at other agencies. So yeah, that's sometimes a bit difficult. But it's double for me. It's
so you sometimes feel the need to like fake that you're bigger than that you are, or like not fake, but kind of like act that you're bigger than you actually are.
I don't think it's just, it is what it is. I think what I always want to say then, so look, just do one project with us.
Yes.
And we will prove you wrong. And yeah, I haven't had like one, like in 2 years, like I think most clients have been like really, really happy because we just, it's without being like, I don't want to brag or anything, but I think we just do whatever we can and have an open discussion about it. And I think mostly clients have been happy so far. So I think just to prove that I can prove them wrong. That's sometimes what I want to do.
Yeah, but probably the prospects that really want to work with a big agency don't come or don't reach out either, right? So you do have probably like some kind of selection, which is fair as well, right? Okay, cool. Some questions are coming in. So Sara, maybe you can take this one. What can people who are thinking about becoming independent do now to lay the groundwork for a successful first year?
So I would say before you go out, before you do anything, especially if you're in the US, it's like you need to get all of the infrastructure set up. So you want to set up an LLC, you want to set up a business bank account, you want to get an accountant, you want to set up QuickBooks, you want to get all of that kind of infrastructure in place. And then
Presley.
Presley. Well, Presley I already was working with, but I didn't buy Presley until I started and left. But, starting to get all of that infrastructure together is really, really important so that you're not focused on that, because it is super overwhelming and time consuming. And then, the best thing to do is to start to talk to some of your closest contacts and just like seed the idea that this is something that you're looking to do, because then I think the first set of clients kind of come in pretty easily because people are already thinking about you as an option. They are, keeping that in mind. They're talking to like their closest contacts about, what might happen. And I think that I wish that I had done all of that a lot earlier. For me, it was like a very fast process that I was like, man, this would have been 1,000 times less stressful if I'd started 6 months ago, and eased into it. But I think it's really just about starting to activate that network, not like a huge network, but your closest friends that are journalists, your closest ex-clients, the folks that that are like your PR friends, and just let them know what you're thinking about, so that as you're starting to build together, which is so important because you're going to need that network moving forward. When you go out on your own, like I haven't felt very alone in this process because I always had partners and friends. But if I had just kind of done that without, activating those people who feel kind of on my team, I probably would have had a much, much harder time.
Yeah. And Bram, want your idea on that as well, because I think there are some people like listening or watching the recording afterwards that are curious about what to do.
Yeah, it's activate your network and start having lunches. Like in Belgium, you can have lunch. Having lunch is like, it works. It's not in every country that it works, but it's activate your network. Go through your. I used to have like a big file of like business cards that I kept, and people always laughed with it when I was still at Ketchum. It was like this big, and I still have it. It's huge, like. And just go through it, go through LinkedIn, go through your business cards and start, reaching out to people. What I did, I was an independent when I was still at Ketchum, so that was a bit of preparation that I had. And I did a few projects on the side. It was like really small, and then when the timing was right, then I was really ready to go on my own. So I did a little bit of preparation beforehand. But what do you need when you become an independent? You need clients. And how can you get clients? It's by activating your network, or it's
makes sense. But I guess easing into it, there's some value into that as well, right? I was kind of, when we were starting Presley, we could do it on the side, right? So we had some other things going on, we could do it on the side, and I think that kind of made it easier. At some point, it becomes a danger for the business as well, right? Because your hands are full and you need to juggle these things as well. But it is such a financial relief that there is still money coming in while not being like full time in the business. So I think kind of trying to figure the balance out is kind of the hard part, I guess. Yeah.
And one thing that I would just say, to plug Presley for a second, but Presley and tools like Presley, is that especially as you're starting out on your own, there's a scary moment where you're like, I have to invest in all of this infrastructure myself, right? Like I have to pay for these things, I have to pay for my health insurance in the United States. You guys in Europe have a much better situation, but there are a lot of costs that come up that you're not used to paying for. But it's so important to invest in those kinds of tools because you don't have a full team behind you anymore, right? So you need to cut down on the time spent on administrative tasks as much as humanly possible. And the benefit of using these tools like vastly outweighs their cost. And so you're able to take on so much more business because you're using more sophisticated technology. And it's something that I think at the very beginning, it's like a little bit of a shock. Like I have to invest this much in like a yearly Presley account. I have to invest this much in like a new computer for myself. And, there are so many of those little costs in terms of like technology and infrastructure that are just worth accounting for at the beginning so that you can just forget about them, and then they're like built into your operations.
And I think you can just invoice. Talking about Presley, I invoice a monthly fee to clients who I use Presley for. I just it pays it back automatically. I mean, that I think for me it should be a line in your invoice, like with all the tools. If you use it to serve clients, then I think the clients, I don't think they mind paying for it, if you use it well.
Yeah.
But I agree with Sarah on that point. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's tons of things that you can use, like, to avoid kind of hiring someone in quicker, right? There's so much things you can kind of automate before really actually, because then that becomes really expensive, right? When you start like hiring people. I think whatever you can do to kind of like push that, and you can't do that forever, of course, but that was kind of what helped us, right? The more you can do on your own, the more you can automate, the more you can work with freelancers once in a while, the better you kind of can. But let's take another question from Roselle here before we kind of wrap up. So, how do you learn, practice new skills and methods? As a sole practitioner, you have to be able to guarantee results, but you also need to grow your skills. Do you have a recommended resources, Sarah? Oh, I can't hear you anymore, Sarah. Is it just me?
Oh, I think
here we go. Yeah.
You know, I live in New York City, so every time I'm not talking, I'm putting myself on mute because it's pretty loud out there.
No worries.
You know, I don't have any specific recommended resources. I tend to think a lot of the, you know, the PR kind of networking things don't feel very native to me. The way that I learn is through talking to folks in my network. Like, you know, you hear about friends that are doing different campaigns and that are testing out different methods or working with different journalists, and kind of learn through osmosis and learn through working out problems with them. That's also another way that I've gained a lot of knowledge that I wouldn't have outside of the very specific kind of like PR tactics, is that, you know, if you're willing to help people out and brainstorm with them and work through problems with them, then you learn so much about what they're doing, and what they're up against, and what kind of different, you know, people that they're talking to, things that they are engaging in. And that's very helpful. And I think also just showing up to like industry events, right? Like if you're working in a more specific area, it's so important to go to those different events and to talk to people, to see what's out there, to read what's going on. As much as this is an industry that has lots of great tools and tactics, you know, a lot of how you learn is just by paying attention to what's going on, to what kind of stories are being written, to what's shown. And the more that you pay attention, the sharper you are in terms of figuring out what areas your clients are occupying that aren't being talked about, and where the real areas of opportunity are. So for me, it's less about those kind of like professional networking tools. It's about having like a very solid infrastructure and then really paying attention to how things are being reported and where, and, you know, what's going on in the broader world and what's not being reported on.
Yeah.
I did a great training at Hyper Island in Sweden. It was a 4-day course on social media strategy and marketing that I really liked. I learned a lot by doing as well, my own social media advertising. That if I do it on my own, it's just learning by doing. Also, when we pitched for a crisis assignment, it was an international crisis assignment. I worked together with like former Ketchum colleagues, but like the best in the world when it comes to crisis communications. And the guys who, I learned so much during that pitch. Things that, so it's working with other people as well that can be so.
I think learning by doing is so important, because like the business requires different things from you every single year, right? So as you grow, you go to different things, and that's kind of the funny thing, because like we've been doing Presley for over a decade now, so you could kind of think, well, it gets boring, but the thing is, it kind of requires you to kind of step up in something else, right? Every single year you need to, all of a sudden you need to hire a team, and then you don't know, and you need to figure it out. And I think that's been the beauty, that there's a lot of more variety in the role than it would be That's for me at least. But I do believe that for lots of people who start businesses is true. All right, cool. I think we need to wrap up here because we are on the hour. So I can only thank so much Bram and Sara.
Can I say just one
of
more
course,
thing?
yes, of
That's
course, yes.
Have we said how fantastic it is to run your own business? I don't think we have.
Yes, we did. No, we didn't. We
haven't. I mean,
no. You're absolutely right. Go
I've
ahead.
never been so happy in my entire career as I am now. I have so much energy. I'm a different person. I just love being an independent. It's everything comes together, the entrepreneurial part, the consulting part, the commercial part. For me, it's a dream come true, and that's what I've always wanted to do. That's my final goal.
And I totally agree. And obviously I'm in a very different position where it's super new for me, and I'm in probably the most difficult and overwhelming part of it. And even so, it's just, we spend so much of our life working and so much of our time and mental and emotional energy. And it's so nice to just have that be a more integrated part of who you are and your life, because otherwise you're just giving away this massive piece of yourself to an organization. And it's very different when it's your own thing.
And no office politics anymore.
No.
That's the
best part.
Thing. No, I'm not kidding. It's absolutely one of the best parts.
Not even offices anymore, right? No. I think I can only agree. The highs are higher, the lows are lower as well. But you didn't want to trade these higher highs with no lows anymore, right? So I think that's basically like why you do it. It's probably not for everyone, but I think once you've done it, it's a little bit of an addiction, and you can't go back anymore. It's a box that you opened which can't be closed anymore. So if everyone wants to do it and wants to kind of reach out to you or connect with you, where can they do it? Like, we'll share some links. Oh, Kate already shared them. Thank you, Kate. So Bram's LinkedIn is there. His website is there as well. And we'll do the same for Sara. So we'll do that. And so we'll send a follow-up for people as well with the recording, as well as all the details in there. I can only thank Bram and Sara so much for joining us, giving the advice on their early startups. I can still call it startups. I call myself a startup, and we're freaking retired almost a decade in. But no, we're still a startup. It just feels better, right? But before we go, we have a tradition to send some gifts to people, and they can choose. Like Sara, you can go first. Chocolates or beer. Both going to be from Belgium, but what do you select?
Oh, definitely beer.
Right, good. Bram, chocolates or beer?
I go for beer, absolutely.
All right, simple guys. So thanks so much for joining, and all the best in your next months in the business. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. We'll follow up with an email soon. Bye.
Bye.